two dirty painters to multiple seven-figure business owners. I'm Redion.
And I'm Karmelo.
And we'll be giving you the insider secrets to take your trade business to the next level.
From crazy stories to proven strategies, get ready to supercharge your business with us.
Welcome to the Dirty Painters Podcast. Today, guys, we're joined by our guest, Shadi Fram, who is a CPA and owner of his own accounting firm, Fram and Fram. Also, one of our business partners for a new business venture we launched, Cloud Books, bookkeeping for contractors.
Shadi has a proven track record in navigating the landscape of multi-billion-dollar audits at a renowned Big Four firm. Shadi is now a specialist within the contracting business sector.
And in today's episode, guys, we will be discussing what it's like to make the leap from working for a corporate job to starting your own business and the importance of knowing your numbers as a small business owner. Welcome, Shadi. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well.
How are you enjoying in Tampa compared to Michigan?
Loving it, man. I'm only here for a day and a half.
Day and a half. Quick trip in and out to film content.
Oh,
So, Shadi, we're very excited to have you here. We're excited to do this. So, we want to talk a little bit about your background, how you got started, what's your upbringing, your education, where'd you go on that. Let's start. Where are you from?
yeah, so I got my undergrad from MSU, Michigan State University, master's from Oakland University in accounting, and I started working for PwC, so large multi-billion-dollar company, doing audits and things of that nature. Decided I kind of want to go my own way, so I left PwC, went to a mom and pop accounting firm to get to know smaller mom and pop companies, right? So anywhere from doctors, painters, you name it, I was taking care of them.
Take us a little bit back from like high school, Shadi.
Oh, high school Shadi?
Yes. Like how'd you decide? I mean, it's not a sexy industry, accounting. Everybody hates accounting and accountants. How did you decide to like, you know what, man, I'm gonna go to school for accounting?
So it's funny that you ask that. So actually, I didn't originally go into accounting. I was going pre-med. I was going to be a doctor, all that kind of stuff. Primarily because my dad's a doctor, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I always joke. I tell people I went to the dark side, right? So I left pre-med, went accounting, and honestly, I wouldn't change anything for the world.
Were you like always good at math when you're younger, or like
No, it's a misconception. You're good at numbers and math and all that. No.
you just like counting money?
I mean, we don't even really see cash, to be honest with you. A lot of our clients is primarily, non-cash or.
Nice. So, guys, me and Shadi, we've been friends for what now? 6 years? No, 7 years, I think.
Yeah, about 6-7 years.
So the first time that we met, actually, your ex-business partner responded to one of my Instagram ads, and you guys had a building, and they needed a painter. So the first time I met Shadi was actually to paint his building.
Yeah.
Back in August 2018. 2019,
2019.
2019,
yeah, right before COVID.
Right before COVID. So yeah, that was how we met. And then funny story, guys. Fram and Fram, Shadi started his business, August 3rd, 2018?
It was like, I remember, a day or two away from when you started yours.
So it was like a crazy coincidence, like it was meant to be. That's how we see it all the time. Like our business is starting a day separate, and then a year down the road, we become friends. We do business together.
And what's also funny is, so Fram and Fram is my brother and I, right? And you guys are brothers, so I thought it was funny.
It's a cool dynamic.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit after you graduated Michigan State, you went and worked for a big accounting firm.
Yeah, so I went and worked for PwC, PricewaterhouseCoopers, so Big Four. I think at the time they were the biggest of the Big Four. I was doing, multi-billion-dollar audits, even, mid-sized corporations that are, a little under $1 billion in value. And it was just a great learning experience, right? So even I dealt with some privately owned companies that are worth almost $1 billion. So it's kind of cool to see CEOs or, owners that see how they did their things, from
like
scratch.
very, very successful people.
Extremely successful, yeah.
Dealing with like billions of dollars, literally.
Yeah. He was like an unknown billionaire in Michigan, for example, that no one really knows about, but his specialty was insurance. So I learned the ins and outs of insurance.
Do you have any cool like experiences from like dealing with like a very well-known business that does billions of dollars, like auditing them and all that?
I dealt with Borg Warner, so their automotive supplier. Cool experience, not really. It was just automotive supplying is, what it is, industrial. But on the note of privately owned business, and the guy's almost worth $1 billion, it was pretty crazy to see him in person because everyone would go quiet when they saw him. Right. And he was to the point where if he saw a picture frame on the wall, like a little bit crooked, he would stop everyone and go and fix, like he was OCD about everything.
Extremely detailed person.
Which I think is very important when you're running your business.
What was the turning point you think that was like, you know what, man, this is a good career. I'm working for $1 billion company, but I want more out of this. I want to create something of my own. What you think switched that in your mind? And you told Talal like, hey, you know what, man, let's do our own thing.
So yeah, the primary purpose, I mean, aside from obviously we want to make more money, right, is having an impact on our clients, right? So when I was with a multi-billion dollar firm, even if I, figured out an issue with an audit, whatever it might be, I really wasn't changing any lives, right?
Hmm.
And no one likes an auditor. But being a tax guy and a bookkeeper and helping with payroll and things of that nature, you have a direct impact on these people's lives and their families, and it,
You're giving value
you
pretty
feel
much.
more wholesome doing that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Nice, nice. And then what were some of the early struggles when you and your brother started the business first?
We started from scratch, so no clients. That was probably the hardest thing. So even marketing, I remember we spent I think a couple grand on direct flyers, I think they call them,
Hmm.
and it got zero return.
Oh, like mail?
Yeah,
Oh,
mailers.
okay,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
okay,
yeah, yeah.
so mailers.
Yeah, so I went and pulled a report that gave me all the addresses of like doctors and dentists and pharmacists in the area, and we sent them flyers, all that kind of stuff, professionally made, whatever you want to call it. But we got a couple phone calls, but zero retention.
Yeah, we talked about this in a previous episode, like
Yeah.
ways of marketing that we wouldn't try. Shadi didn't know us at the time, so yeah, direct mail is not a great return. Like me,
No,
I'll just throw them in the garbage.
we found out word of mouth is the best way. So if you provide a good service, even if it's cheap up front, right, whatever it might be, it's a very good return when they start telling their friends and family and other business owners, right? That's how you get you build your business.
How did you establish credibility? Like with those first clients, like, hey, trust me to handle which taxes I think it's the most important part of everybody's life besides health in United States. How did you establish
So
credibility?
I think one of the main reasons was my brother and I are not just accountants, we're CPAs. So we went through, got the exams, all that kind of stuff. So that definitely helps. If if they know what a CPA is, even some of our clients, believe it or not, they don't even know. They're like, oh, we call you a bookkeeper, which is fine. We don't
Hmm.
mind. But that was one of the primary ways I think that we were able to, attract people. And when they saw that we owned real estate and did things in that nature, it helps build credibility. Like, you know what you're doing, especially if they own real estate, for example, right? They're like, oh, I trust this guy. He's been through it. He knows what the ins and outs of buying a property and improving it and selling it, all that kind of stuff. So he must know tax wise and from a bookkeeping standpoint how to take care of all that kind of stuff.
Nice,
Yeah.
nice. So if you could go back in 2018 with what you know now, what would you do different, or you don't change a thing on how you started your business, how you set up the ground?
What I would do different maybe is primarily set up processes from the beginning, right? Even though it's just my brother and I,
Hmm.
but set up processes from the very beginning because before you know it, you might have zero clients and you're going to skyrocket to 1,000 clients, whatever might be in your respective business. And if you don't have processes set up, it can get a bit crazy.
It gets a big
Yeah.
mess.
So money's not the issue at that point. It's trying to keep everything in line and keeping everyone happy. Keeping the quality of service at the top level.
Nice, nice. So let's go back to when you first met me. What do you think of me?
No, I thought you were a really good guy. You seemed pretty straightforward. You were good at what you did and all that kind of stuff. I'm trying to even remember now how we became friends. I guess because I remember you came to the building, but
So I did a few jobs for you guys,
yeah,
and then you're like, hey, you want to come hang out with us? One time that we went to that Middle Eastern place, I was like, sure, I'll come hang out with you guys,
yeah.
and that's how it sparked up, I think.
And then I think you said, "Oh, I need an accountant or something along those lines." And then one thing led to
No, you
another.
were already my accountant.
Oh, I was ready to
So
go at the
yeah,
time. Yeah.
after the Egyptian guy fucked me over the first year in taxes, uh, I almost went to jail because of him. And I was like, dude. And then that's when I came to your office, and I was like, okay, I need to clean this up because we're getting to the point, like you said earlier, like like thousands of clients getting so overwhelmed,
Yeah.
and everything was unorganized as fuck. So I had no structure at all, like keeping track of my money, keeping track of all like the reports. So I was like, okay, if we want to grow, we're getting growing really fast. I have to get that in check. So that's I think
You got to keep it together. No,
yeah,
exactly. And that's what I tell all my clients, even the ones that come in that have never even started a business before, right? They say, what's the first thing I do? I'm like, well, aside from maybe making LLC or, protecting yourself from a legal standpoint, you got to track your numbers. Money coming in, money going out, just makes everything easier in the long run. And it helps you grow when you want to, go pull loans from the bank, all that kind of stuff. They're going to ask you for your financials.
absolutely. Carmelo, the first time I met Shadi, I was like, okay. I walked in the building. He comes out like he's trying to like be like a tough guy. He's like walking. He's like, yeah, man, are you gonna do this? Are you gonna do this? Are you gonna do this? I'm like, oh my god, this guy won't fucking pay me. He'll fuck me over. That was my first thought when I saw Shadi. I was like, shit, do I take this job or?
You're like, we take 80% up front.
Literally, I was like, that's what I was like, you know what? I'm gonna take a 50% deposit, and at least I have my labor cost and my material cost covered.
Covered. Yeah.
So yeah, Shadi, you've been dealing with a lot of contracts. Obviously, you've been dealing with Olympian pretty much from like our infant stages.
Yeah.
What are some things that you think really helped us as Olympian from from our partnership together get to the level that we are today?
I think one of the main ones is working with you, honestly. So you're, I think, a little bit OCD, such as like myself, right? So you like things to be organized, clean cut, no fuck ups.
Yep.
A nice way to say it, right? So I think that's, not all our clients are like that. A lot of our clients, we got to beg them for information, and even though it's for their benefit, right? But they don't. A lot of times, people don't see the value. Maybe if they're not trying to grow, but if you're trying to grow, it's very, very important to keep your books in check.
How do you think you made you a specialist into dealing with contractors? Just because you do real estate, you buy your own buildings.
Yeah.
Do you think that
So,
helps?
oh, big time. So, funny enough, a lot of the contractors I use to do remodels, they're actually my clients. So, and they know what I'm, just from experience, dealing with me in doing the remodels and buying material and all that kind of stuff. They know that I know what I'm talking about. So they trust me with their books.
So you walk the talk pretty much. It's not like you're just some geek in an office that just knows numbers and computer. You actually do that thing on the daily.
Yeah. No, of course. I mean, I think it's important to a lot of people that their accountant, because they wonder like, oh, does he know what this is, what that is? Like we know what we're doing, and we can essentially handle almost, I would say, any business. But I think a lot of our clients like to know that we deal with whatever their business might be. So like plumbers, drywall, painters, framers, whatever it might be.
So one thing that I noticed from doing with hundreds of consulting clients is a lot of people in the trades, they might be successful, but they don't understand the financial side of the business, which I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's very important no matter what the level of business you're in. You might be a startup, you might just starting out. I feel like it's very important to understand like the basic terms as a business owner.
It is. It's very important. Like you need to know what what revenue means, right? Money coming in. So sometimes when I mention revenue, people are like, "What does that mean?" I'm like, "Well, it's any money that you get." They're like, "What about cash?" I'm like, "Yeah, that's revenue too. Anything that comes in, whether you put it in the bank or not, is considered revenue. Any money that goes out, whether it was cash or credit card, whatever it might be, debit or from right from your bank, that's considered an expense. So if you're paying subcontractors, you're paying for material with Sherwin Williams, whatever it might be, you know, you got to track all those things to see what your gross margin is. And then after your gross margin, you can calculate what your net income is by calculating what your overhead is. So if you're paying rent, yes, that is a write off. If you're
Got it.
doing something out of your house, we can get really technical about it, but it depends what you can and can't write off.
Got it. Because, for example, like one of my pre-screening questions when people reach out for consulting, I'm like, "What's your gross revenue?"
Mhm.
And like out of 10 people, like four of them were like, "Oh, what is that?"
Yeah.
So I'm like, "Come on, man! How you hit me up to grow your business and you don't even know what gross revenue is?"
Yeah, and I'm not calling anyone
No,
stupid or
no, no.
whatever. There's a lot of things maybe people have not been educated about, but it's good to educate yourself and find out more, whether it's from using Google or your
Or just ask
bookkeeper, your
somebody.
accountant. Yeah, just ask someone and trying to figure it out. Because if you're trying to actually grow your business, it's very, very important to know the financials. I know I'm beating a dead horse with this, but if you're trying to go out there and you're trying to buy, four more trucks and you need to get a loan, right? You don't have the cash on hand. If you go to a bank and ask them for that, they're going to say, okay, let's see your financials. If you don't have those in hand, they're going to be like, okay, this guy doesn't know what he's doing. We're not going to give him that money.
Yeah, absolutely. They won't trust you.
They're not going to trust you now.
Plus, you don't present a good image for your company if you don't have your reports in check.
Yeah, exactly. Your financials reflect, a lot about who you are as well, I think.
Correct, correct. Another thing that I want to touch that a lot of people just throw out there on social media, they're like, "Oh, you have to know your KPIs. You have to know your KPIs." Can you just like tell us what a KPI is?
So KPIs are a way to track the health of your business. So you can track, it depends on the industry, right? So you
Hmm.
can track gross margin, you can track your net income, track, the aging of your receivables and, your payables, all that kind of stuff. It just depends, for painters, for example, I know gross margin is one of the biggest things, right? Because
Hmm.
you know your overhead for the most part, like your rent, all that kind of stuff. But gross margin essentially is money coming in, what you build for a job, and then money going out, what you paid for, subs and material, all that kind of stuff.
And it's like custom trackers, like key performance indicators. You can make them whatever you want.
Yeah.
Like you can make them track your average job size. You
If
can.
you even want to track, for example, like cash on hand, for example, from month to month or quarter to quarter, year over year, that's technically you can turn that into a KPI.
And you don't need any fancy software for that, right? You just need a
No, not
spreadsheet.
really. As long as you have your financials in order, right, and you have a history of financials, like whether even month to month or year to year or five, if you have 5 years of financials and you can see over time your growth and all that kind of stuff, it helps a lot
Got it.
to
Got
know
it.
what you did right, what you did wrong.
And then that's for the financial side. KPIs also, you can create those KPIs in like how to track your leads, how to track your marketing spend, how to track your conversions, how many estimates you're selling, how many leads that come in turn to appointments. You can get very technical with it, but uh,
You can, and actually, like along those lines, like let's say your advertising expense, which I know is pretty big amongst painters, right?
mhm.
So you can track, hey, I paid this much more in advertising. I got a return on my investment with more leads and more leads that we close, all that kind of stuff.
So one thing that I want you to like give our viewers as a kind of like an example of how knowing your numbers can help you scale your business. You said with trucks, and so how would you me knowing my numbers? Let's say I wasn't educated as I am on this field. Like, how do you think knowing my numbers and my reports would help me make a move? Let's say getting my own shop or expanding my fleet or getting like a very expensive equipment. What would I be looking at?
So you would, I think, for the most part, especially in the beginning, if you're like just ramping up business, is you want to look at your cash flow, right?
Mhm.
So you don't want to buy stuff that you know is going to make you money, but then you're going to be very tight on money. Because I know a lot of people have, they're married and kids and they have expenses at home. So you got to keep things in check. You don't want to go overboard in the beginning, but also you don't want to go too slow. There's kind of like a happy medium that you have to find. And you can do that from dealing with, your bookkeeper, financial, advisor, whoever you deal with.
And then that knowing those reports, they'll kind of tell you like, hey, you're ready to make this move. You're ready
Yeah.
to make like for us this year, we want to get our own buy our own shop. So we look at those reports and we're like, hey, I think we're ready. And I call up Shadi, obviously. He's my bookkeeper and my accountant and my financial advisor. I'm like, hey, do you think we're ready to buy our shop? And then he'll be like, yes, you're ready. You can swing by, let's say, a $10,000 a month payment for a big shop.
Yeah. So if I see like you're paying, rent right now, I don't know, I'm making up numbers here, right?
2,500.
But let's say it's, 60,000 a year. I go, oh, okay, well, you could spend a little bit more here and get a loan and get your own shop, right? And then maybe rent out in your remaining space, all that. Like I can give you ideas, throw them out there to see what you would and wouldn't want to do. But in the long run, it's all about building your equity, building your net worth.
Got it. And then it's those reports help to understand the financial health of your business and also where you're standing as a business owner and what you can spend. Because you have to take those calculated risk based on the reports that you have on hand.
Yeah, of course.
You deal with hundreds of contractors, maybe thousands. What's the one thing that it's like a pet peeve for you when they show up to your office? Like, yeah, Shadi, I need a accounting, I need a bookkeeping. What are some things that they do wrong that you wish they knew before they came to you?
So especially when they come to me right before tax season starts, right? So at the end of we'll say late December, mid January. One of the biggest ones is they tell me, "Oh, I got a 1099, my guys." I go, "Okay." Like, do you have W-9s on hand? They're like, "What is that?" I'm like, "Okay, I need the social security number or tax ID number for their business, whatever it might be, and their address, and it's signed, all that kind of stuff." And then they say, "Oh, okay, I can get all that." I'm like, "Oh, so how much did you pay them?" They go, well, why do you know that? I'm like, well, I'm going to send them a 1099. It has to have a number on it. And they go, well, we don't know how much we paid them. I'm like, okay, so this is going to be a bigger headache than we thought it was going to be.
And it ends
So
up costing more money, right? Because you
it,
have to do all the work, go
it,
through bank statements.
it's not only costs them more money, but it can cause some stress and conflict because if you don't have those out by the 31st of January, it can cause very, very big problems.
Versus
So
us.
because
Like,
everyone wants to file their taxes, right? And if you didn't send them the 1099, they're going to be on you for it.
yeah,
And
100%.
then that, the painter, plumber, whoever it might be, is going to be on me saying, "Hey, where's the 1099?" I'm like, "You just came to me a week ago. How am I going to have all this stuff ready for you?
Can you
You
give
haven't done any bookkeeping."
Yeah, can you give our listeners a little bit of example how we do things? For example, Olympian, like January 1st hits and then 1099s are already out.
Yeah. So Redion and Karmelo, you guys are pretty good at like immediately sending me everything. I think realistically about a week after the year
Yeah.
end, right? And you have all your stuff in order. You already have socials, all that kind of stuff. It makes it very, very easy, painless, whatever you want to call it, to just send them out and not have to worry about that. You can worry about the next thing. You don't have to be stuck on that one topic.
And also bookkeeping helps because you update it every week or every month, whatever it might be. It helps keep track of how much every sub is making every month.
Yeah, and that way you can track to see, are they you losing money on that sub? Are you making money on that sub? Because a lot of guys, they don't know until a year later after they did their taxes. They go, "Oh, we only made that much. I thought we made more." I'm like, "Well, no, you didn't make that as much as you thought you did."
Yeah, exactly. And they're like all over the place. They don't even know how much money they're paying out.
And it can get complicated when there's a lot of cash involved. It can get very complicated, and it's hard to retrack your steps after that.
And then people just go, I just imagine like every time you call me, like, yeah, I had this guy come up and he's like all over the place. I can just imagine him coming up with a bucket of receipts and like, yeah, Shadi, let's do my taxes.
At my old job, I used to have guys come in with like, paper bags filled with receipts and stuff like that and say, organize it. I'm like, the hell is this?
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy.
So staying organized throughout the year, it makes the filing the taxes, sending 1099s as a contractor way easier and seamless because you be doing that homework let's say every month for like 30 minutes.
Yeah.
But then it's gonna save you what, like 20 hours on during tax season, and it's gonna end up being cheaper for your tax preparer. He won't charge you as much if he doesn't have to organize all the books.
Across the board, even if you're paying a bookkeeper or whoever it might be, you're going to be saving money because now you're making sure on a month to month basis you're tracking all your expenses, right? I know a lot of guys out there are forgetting a lot of expenses, so they're going to pay more what in income tax, right, and self employment tax, or however their tax structure might be. But it saves you a lot of money on the dollar if you make sure you track it month to month rather than wait till the end of the year.
What's another the one thing that you told me yesterday, like you find a lot of times on your clients that they do like with the double charges because they don't pay attention. A lot of contractors are busy, so they don't look at their accounts every day.
Yeah, I found with a ton of my clients when we do their bookkeeping and things like that, we'll find double charges, and it's obvious too, like $3,842, 11 cents, whatever it might be. We'll see it like 2 or 3 times, and I'll be like, is that right? And they're like, no, that's not right. I didn't.
I didn't get
Yeah,
signed
but I'm
up
like,
for
oh, you
this.
didn't notice you were short 7 grand or whatever it might be, and they go, no, and they get embarrassed, right? And then they go and talk to the vendor, whoever it might be, and be like, oh, you overcharged me, and then
So
they get their money
yeah.
back. So we just like paid for our value in literally in 1 minute for a whole year.
Yep.
Yeah,
So like you red flag those or like the way you do it. You're like, hey man, what the heck? You're not looking
something
for
doesn't look right. Yeah,
Yeah, a lot of people they don't pay attention on their bank statements and what money in, money out a lot.
yeah,
So
and I would suggest even if you have a bookkeeper and all that, just keep like an eye on your bank, right, on your app or whatever, and just occasionally once a week flip through and check to see money coming in, money going out, and that all makes sense. Even your credit card, right? Just make sure it makes sense. If usually your credit card bill is 5,000 a month, and boom, all of a sudden it's 10 or 15,000, I would look into that.
that's a red flag.
It's a red flag.
So when do you think it's a good time for a business owner to reach out to a CPA, an accountant firm, and all that?
I'm biased, right? Because I'm a CPA, but I think before you even open a bank account, because it's not just the financials that come into play and the bookkeeping. It's how did you set up your tax entity? How much money do you think you're going to make in the first year? Did you file as an S corp? Do you have partners? Like, there's a million things. I have some guys that come to me and they go, "What's an LLC? How does that work?" And depending on the state that you live in, you have to get an attorney and they create it for you. But upfront costs shouldn't be more than $1,000. It shouldn't be.
So like let's say me, I want to start a business tomorrow. I'm not educated at all in the financial, setting up LLC, accounting. Just going and asking somebody, it shouldn't cost much to like set up an appointment with you and consultation. Be like, Shadi, let's say I want to start a construction company or a painting company. How should I set it up right from the beginning? What's the average cost? Like for example, like a consultation with any CPA. I'm sure it's not
So
a
as a
drastic
CPA,
change.
technically by law, we cannot, create an LLC for you. You could create an LLC, your attorney can create an LLC for you, right? But the cost associated with it, if you know what you're doing, probably 50 to $100. But if you
Okay.
need to pay someone to do it for you, I wouldn't imagine it's more than 5, 6, $700.
Like somebody can still find a specialist like you anywhere in their state. Be like, hey man, how should I set up my business? Should it be an LLC, sole proprietor, C corp, S corp?
They should be able to, yeah. And that it all depends on if you have partners, don't have partners, right? If you're, husband and wife, if you guys are partners or not partners, like there's a lot of you can get really nitty gritty into it, right? It's a sandbox to a certain extent, but it just make sure you take care of all those things up in the up front, because if you wait until a year or two in, it can make things complicated.
Also setting up the business right from upfront
Up front, yeah.
because you don't want to be changing your what is it called? How your business passes? What do you like?
Like a pass through, yeah. So like how your tax and
Yeah,
whatnot.
how you
that-
set up to get taxed. You
that
don't want to be changing that
definitely
down the
matters.
road.
Yeah, exactly. It makes it easier, way easier, less headaches to do it up front before you even start business.
Because I remember when because Olympian started as a single member LLC with just me, and then you had to do a bunch of work to change it from
To
a partnership with me and
yeah.
Carmelo. So I
Yeah.
remember that was uh, it was a little like groundwork. So
It matters, yeah.
matters.
It's not that easy where at the end of the year you can just like check a box, and it's not that simple.
Yep. Yeah, so that we learn from personal experience, like set up the right way from the beginning. That way you don't have not issues, but like you're not reconfusing yourself or your the way that you do business.
Yeah.
Another thing that I want to ask you, since you're the expert here, and a lot of people don't know that, believe it or not, how do you calculate profit margin and stick with just the contractor, like the contractor painters? A lot of people don't know what gross profit margin is. Give us a little bit of insight on that.
So your gross margin is you take your revenue, so money coming in, you
Hmm.
subtract from it your primary costs, which are going to be like your payroll, your subcontractors, your material, right? Whether it's Home Depot, Sherwin Williams, whatever it might be. And then that's how you get to your gross margin. And that's usually, and then you take a percentage, right? You divide one by the other. And that's how you find out what your gross margin is. And that's a very good key indicator if a business is doing well or not well before you even start considering everything else like your rent and that kind of stuff.
Because like with knowing your gross profit margin, you can also see how much money you're making on each job
Yes.
and if you're profitable.
Hmm.
Because let's say your gross revenue might be high, but you're not keeping a lot of money.
Hmm. It
And
doesn't matter. Some people say, "Oh, I made 2 million a year." When they say I made 2 million, they're saying I brought in 2 million. But really, what matters is what did you keep in your pocket at the end of the day.
exactly.
That's what really matters. Some people talk big talk and they say, "Oh, I made 10 million," but really their expenses were 9.5 million. They made half a million. Okay, that's great. Don't get me wrong, but you're kind of you're bluffing by saying, "Oh, I made this much."
Oh, 100%. And then also when you're trying to grow, if you don't know those numbers and if you don't know your gross profit margins, if you're actually profitable and you're trying to scale, you can cause a lot of problems because you're gonna be
Your
scaling your
cash flow, you're
liability.
gonna hurt on your cash flow big time.
And then the more you grow, you scale a business that's not profitable, then you're gonna get into a lot of trouble down the
So
road.
say you have a guy on the road and he's doing the quotes for you, right? The guy that you trust, he's a friend, brother, whatever it might be, and he's quoting the jobs, and you think he's quoting them. You're getting a 40% margin on your jobs. When you actually calculate your gross margin, you see you're getting like 20, 25% on your jobs. There's an issue here.
You gotta
You
adjust
gotta address it. Yeah,
100%
yeah.
because you don't want to be scaling shit.
I had a client actually, construction client of mine, this was like a few years ago, probably around during COVID. He thought he was grossing like 50% margin on his jobs. Turns out the guy that was quoting was just lowballing everywhere, right? And they were losing money on their jobs. Not even making money, they were losing money.
Wow.
So they hit big cash flow issues and he was doing like in payroll a year, I think a couple mil. So imagine, very quickly overnight, it can cause a big issue if you're short, even 50 grand, 100 grand, whatever it might be.
How can like you said cash flow, like how can that cause issues? Like do you just run out of money in your business or like your just bank account keeps decreasing because your operating costs are more than what you bring in?
I think, one of the main issues that we see come up is people are quoting jobs, they're quoting them the right way, and they're going out there, they're doing the job, but then they're not paying attention to they're not getting paid on the jobs, right? Which can cause a huge issue, even if you're doing well, because if you're 60 days out or 90 days out on your receivables, that can cause a very big issue with cash flow. I think that's kind of what you're asking, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So that's the kind of stuff you got to track it and make sure, hey, we're getting paid on average, you know, 90% of the time we're getting paid within the first 30 days after doing the job. And
Got
that's
it.
why I think it's important, like what you guys do. A lot of time I think it's 50% deposit up front. That's very, very smart because at a minimum, you're at least covering your material and
Yep.
some of the labor.
Yeah, we're very big in cash flow. 50% deposit, 50% due upon completion because
Yeah.
that way it keeps things rolling, it keeps us working and makes things way faster and seamless
Yeah.
versus waiting on terms.
And when you have a good branding and good service and quality of service and word of mouth spreads, right? People are gonna know, oh, I'm paying the 50%, but I trust these guys. These
Yep.
guys are good. If you're kind of one of those shady companies that don't do so well, and Redion and I know about quite a few of those, it can cause big issues, right? You're paying a deposit and then not getting the job done. So it kind of, the way I see it, business is a mesh between advertising, tracking your books, all that kind of stuff. You gotta be on top of all of them, especially as the owner or partner or whatever it might
Yeah, there's a fine line between that because how many times have we run into issues of customers that they gave somebody a deposit and they just walked?
be. And they walk, yeah.
And it's how do you like you let's say forget you're a CPA now.
Yeah.
Just put your contractor Shadi hat on, like you're renovating your buildings. Let's say a contractor comes up to you like Shadi, yeah, you like him, the price is right. He's like Shadi, first time you meet the guy, I need 50% deposit. How do you react as like as a client trying to get work done on your building?
I mean, me personally, I think you know, I like to negotiate if I can and say, hey,
Hmm.
instead of 50% down, let's do 25, 30%. Because I want to get a feel for them, especially if I've never dealt with them before.
Okay.
If I've dealt with them before, easy. I give them the 50%. Doesn't matter to me because I know, excuse my language, I'm not gonna get fucked.
Yep.
Yeah.
But like first time, you're still like trying to like
First time
ease
you
into
gotta get
it.
feel it out. If they are, you know, adamant they need the 50% and I do my research on them, whether whoever refer them to me or Google, whatever it might be, then I'll more likely to give them out the 50.
What's one red flag that might raise based on something they do or something that they say or like the way that they're set up that it would like push you away from doing business with them?
Red flag. I mean, it's hard to tell. I guess I've been blessed. I've only dealt with guys that are pretty good, right?
Okay.
Uh, I don't know. I don't know if I could tell you like a solid red flag aside from they need, their money like that moment.
Okay.
Or if they try to push you, right? They say, "Oh, here's a quote," and then you tell them, "Let me think about it," and they start giving you backlash, like, "Oh no, no, I need this like within the next 24 hours."
Okay.
That can scare me.
So if they're too pushy,
If
that
they're too pushy, oh yeah,
or like for example, I took on an estimate with me yesterday.
yeah.
Did you like the way I handle things? Like I didn't ask for any money. I know like,
No,
hey,
not
think
all.
about it.
Yeah, you're very confident. You told them, what the requirements were, what you had to do, what he had to do, and I think that's exactly how it
That's
should
the
be
right
done.
way
I
to
mean,
do it.
it kind of it reinforces how well you are at what you do, right? You have to be confident when you go on a job.
Correct, correct. But don't be pushy
No, no, not
because it
pushy.
turns off people
No.
and it raises red flags. Like, why is this guy so pushy? Like, does he want to
Does,
fuck me over?
does he really need the job that bad that he's like he needs the money now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Give a piece of advice to somebody that's starting out that let's say he can't afford hiring a bookkeeping company right off the bat. What are some like the first steps until you get your business to the level to afford like off sourcing the bookkeeping and all that? How should you keep track of your numbers?
So my recommendation to someone who might not have that much money to start off with is not racking up credit card debt and all that kind of stuff. No, I would say go meet with someone to help you properly create the LLC
Hmm.
or entity, whatever it might be. And then I would say track it in Microsoft Excel or, Pages or whatever you like to use. But I would track it, or even on a piece of paper,
Yeah,
really, if you want
a
to.
ledger.
A ledger, yeah, put it together and just track money coming in, money going out, because that's the only way you're gonna be able to track your stuff, I think, most effectively. Or even if you print off your bank statements and start highlighting them, this is, revenue, this is an expense. That's not a bad way either. Something's better than nothing.
Yeah, that's how I used to do it in the beginning with a ledger.
Yeah,
I just like write out every job.
yeah,
And another thing that I think helped me a lot that you suggested to me the first time that we met, you're like, Radion, you need to do job cost analysis. So every job you need to know how long it took you to get it done, what was your cost to pay out for labor, how much materials on each job, which helped me figure out what margins I was running.
yeah. So when you're doing job costing, especially in the very beginning, you're not gonna get it right away, right? It's gonna take time and experience and making some mistakes here and there where you might lose a little bit on a job, right? But in the long run, you have to learn, based on the square footage of if you're a painter, right? The
Yeah,
square footage of the walls, all that kind of stuff, and the space, and the kind of material that needs to go into it. You have to be able to properly track, how to quote it, and then make sure you collect on it.
and make sure how much money the job is actually making you.
Yeah,
And you won't know that until you actually and
until it's done.
yeah, until it's done.
Yeah,
And I in the beginning, like I even tell my consultant clients, I'm like, hey, once the job is done, because you have to figure out what numbers are you running. Every time your job is done, let's say for the first 20 jobs,
hmm,
do the job cost analysis. See what numbers you're running. See how long it's taking you to finish a job. See how long it's taking you to get paid. That way you can get a feel, you can grab the pulse of like how you're doing business and how much money your every job average is making you. And now like you said, your guy that was losing money, he was probably not doing that, right?
no, it was a shit show. It was really bad, which
So
was crazy because he was doing, I forget how much, like 5, 6, 7 million in revenue,
wow,
but it was a shit show. It
damn.
was pretty bad.
How did that story end up?
We dropped him as a client. Yeah, it got that bad because we would tell them, "Hey, do A, B, and C," and they would just ignore us on it. And at the end of the year, they'd be like, "Oh, why do we run?" I'm like, "Come on, man, you're not working with me."
Yeah,
Yeah, I get you're busy, but we're also busy, right? You can't come at the end of the year and expect magic to happen. We tell you to do A, B, and C, and you're not even going to do A, B, and C. You know, we care about your business, but you should care about it more. That's the best way to say
true.
it.
And everybody has to hold themselves accountable and do the things that they're supposed to do.
Yeah, yeah.
Keep doing their homework
Mhm.
because you can't just rely on your tax guy and your bookkeeper to just wave a magic wand and then all of a sudden like everything is organized and clean
No,
cut.
nothing happens overnight. You gotta give it love and put some sweat and tears into it, throughout the year.
Do you think contractors in general like are super unorganized with that side of the business?
I mean, if I'm going to compare contractors versus like professional services in general, I notice contractors are not as organized. No, like I have some doctors and dentists. They have every little. I don't know how they do it, right? But they have every little last thing detailed to the to the penny, which is nice as a bookkeeper, right, and all that. And doing when I'm doing taxes and their payroll, it's an easy client to work
Why
with.
do you think that is? Just because they're too busy, they're handling way too many things, or they don't have this certain education or like certain training? Because you don't need to be educated and have a fancy degree. You just need, let's say, an hour of
I think
consultation,
guidance is the main
guidance.
thing. If, maybe professional services, they might have a friend who's an accountant or a bookkeeper. Maybe contractors don't have a friend who's an accountant or a bookkeeper, and they don't really think about that kind of stuff. Who cares, right? Or what I noticed, like yourselves, right? You guys want to grow, so you were on top of that stuff. You want to make sure you did it right. But there's a lot of guys out there, they just want to make money, right? They don't know. Maybe they want to make 50,000 a year, 100, 150, 200. But if you're trying to grow, I think it matters a lot that you track your books.
Let to like kind of wrap this up. Do you think in order to scale to a multiple seven-figure business and somebody that aspires to do that, tracking and knowing your reports and your numbers and everything in your business is vital?
It's very vital. It's actually there's no other route to it. Is the best way to say it, right? So if you got to file your taxes at the end of every year, you need to have your books in order. If you don't have them in order, it's just going to cause it's going to be a constant hurricane as you run from year to year.
Yeah, you don't know where you're heading, right?
Oh, and then when you pay taxes, like if you were making estimated payments or whatever it might be, or not putting enough through payroll, you're going to pay crazy penalties. Federal, state, whatever it might be, wherever you live, it's going to be a huge headache. So I've had some clients, they come to me, the brand new clients, and they have a federal, penalty on taxes of like 10 grand, 15 grand. And they're like, oh, damn it, why did that happen? I'm like, oh, because you didn't make any estimated payments. Like, oh, how do I do that? And then I tell them what my fees are and all that. It's like, wow, that would be only a third of what I'm paying in penalties. I'm like, yeah, you would have been way better off by actually having someone track your stuff rather than just hitting it at the end of the year and just paying a lump, paying 50,000 to the Fed and another 15,000 in penalties. Doesn't feel very good.
It's because it's not only saves you time, but it also saves you money,
Saves you a lot of money. Yeah.
staying on top of your things.
Mhm.
All right. So I think that was one of the main reasons where, like, there's a big need in the industry for contractors to get educated and get guidance for those things and also provide them a seamless service that they can understand. That's why we launched CloudBooks pretty much.
Mhm.
That was one of the main
It,
things.
it made sense. Yeah. Because you have that experience in knowing what the headaches contractors go through, right? I might know a little bit, but you know the ins and outs. You've gone through it. And I know the ins and outs of bookkeeping and all that kind of stuff, the taxes and payroll. So it made sense that we kind of started this venture together.
Do you remember how we how we even came up with the idea? I don't know.
We had been talking for a couple of years
Yeah.
actually about different ideas, and then when this one came up, we were like, "Oh, that actually makes the most sense for us to kind of dive into it together."
You know how I knew it was a good idea? When as soon as I say like, hey, you gotta come down to Tampa, you're like done. You're like, I'm booking my flight. Because we were talking for a lot of ideas for years now. You're like, yeah, might sounds good. But as soon as like we came up with this, you're like, damn, this actually might work.
Mhm.
And I just like the way you took action so
And you
fast. I'm
know
like,
me, I'm very conservative and all that.
I know
When I
you're like
figured,
always like, oh, let's make sure that we don't get fucked up and
yeah,
all that. I'm like,
it
okay,
was a good balance. You're the
yeah,
risk taker. I'm
yeah.
more of the let's wait and see what
I'm
happens.
like, if Shadi believes in this is gonna be huge.
Yeah.
How do you think cloud can help actually contractors, like working with us and our expertise? How do you think can help a contractor, even like in the beginning stages, become successful and set the ground for scaling their business?
So I guess to rehash everything we talked about so far, it just helps them avoid headache. That's like the main reason they should be tracking their books from a month to month basis, even week to week. Some people, right? For a lot of my clients, I do their bookkeeping, and they keep their eyes on every week. So it just depends on the person. Maybe like a lot of contractors don't have that kind of time to keep their eyes on it. They trust someone to just take care of it, but it just depends on the person as well. So I don't know if that answered your question,
It kind of did.
but
Yeah, I think it did answer my question. So another thing is we also not only helping them keep everything organized, but we're educating them from like our expertise. Like Olympian has been doing it for like X way for years. So we're also showing them like, hey, this is the reports that you need to scale a profitable painting
yeah,
business.
so with all of our clients, we even if they don't know anything, right, from scratch, we try to educate them as much as possible because it helps them run their business. And then even for us, we're a little bit selfish, right? They ask us less questions throughout the year because they know what goes into it. They need to track, and it helps create like that, partnership between the client and the bookkeeper to make sure that everything's running smoothly.
Yeah, because I tell Shadi all the time, I'm like you're not selling accounting services, you're not selling bookkeeping services, you're selling peace of mind. Trust and peace of mind.
Yeah.
Like that's the biggest thing, like in our relationship together that I've had throughout the years. It's just like doing everything the right way. I'm like, Shadi, I hired you to give me peace of mind, and you're not. That's what I'm most value more. It's the peace of mind I have working with somebody that does things the right way, set up the right way from the beginning, and I don't have to stress out about like the penalties, about being unorganized, about not knowing how much my subcontractors are making, how much material I'm spending on, marketing costs, and all that. So yes, guys, like
And,
your bookkeeper and your CPA, they're there to give you peace of mind,
and to
nothing
add to
else.
that, I mean, depending on who does your taxes, all that kind of stuff, who does your payroll and bookkeeping, with a lot of my clients, I'll do estimated payments for them every, quarter, and it'll be like 85, $90,000. I'll tell them like, oh, do you want to make the payment or do you want me? And they're like, no, no, it's okay. You go ahead and do it. So there's a level of trust, right? Because now you have their bank information, all that kind of stuff. And they know, I've had some clients, the first meeting, they go, I trust you wholeheartedly. Take care of it for me. Don't worry about it.
Exactly.
And they, it's nice to have that. That's the reason I left the big business stuff, is to kind of work with the mom and pops, right? Where I can have that kind of impact on people.
And then delegate as a business owner, delegating that not only gives you peace of mind, but also saves you a lot of time.
Yeah.
Because I don't have to do a lot of those things.
Mhm.
It's a huge time saver and also stress because I mean taxes are the biggest stress factor in the business, I think. Other than not having work.
So it's funny you say that. I think, usually people say, oh, my biggest expense is payroll or material, whatever. Sometimes it can be your taxes, your income tax, right? If it's not the first, biggest payment, biggest expense, it'll be your second biggest expense.
100%.
So you got to be on top of it.
100%.
And try to minimize it as best as you can, right? There's a lot of ways without getting too much into it now, but if you have a 401k or a retirement, defined benefit plan, whatever it might be, you can take advantage of those things early on, especially if you're younger. It saves you a ton of money up front in taxes, and it grows your wealth like exponentially over the next 30, 40 years. That's for another day though.
That's we would need a 10-hour podcast for
Yeah,
that.
exactly.
I would fall asleep, guys. I mean, I like numbers and that, but it's not for me. What do you think? What do you think makes CloudBooks unique, based on your own perspective?
It's seamless. So it's a conversation up front of what you need, what your needs are, right? All that kind of stuff. And then, you get the ball rolling right away. So that's what I think is going to add the most value for our clients is, or the value we do add to our clients, right? Is they have an app on their phone. They can see what's going on. It's not like they're asking every month, where are my books looking like, all that kind of stuff. And you can see it. You can go ahead and pop it open every day if you really want to.
How I do it
Yeah.
every day.
So every month there will be P&L statements or net income statements. Is that how it will be?
Yes. So every month you have a P&L that shows you, year over year or month to month, whatever you prefer. Each client is different, what they want to see, or each, sector is different, what they want to see. But, for month to month is usually what people look at, and it helps them keep a tabs on their, the health of their business.
Got it. So the P&L will include advertising expenses, payroll, subcontractors,
Every
every single expense.
Every penny.
Mm-hmm.
If we're doing it the right way and we have access to everything, every single penny of money coming in, money going out will be tracked, and
What
you'll eyes on it.
What is something that people can write off, but they don't usually do until they get to meet with, let's say, a CPA?
So this is a funny one that sometimes I have clients come in and they go, at the very end of the conversation, we're about to file. They're like, oh, also, by the way, I bought a truck from my personal account. I'm like, oh, okay, this is gonna make a big impact, beneficial for you for your taxes and whatnot. So, they say, oh, can I write that off? I say, of course you can. I'm like, they're like, yeah, it's a work van, a Sprinter van, whatever it might be. I'm like, that's like the number one thing you should be writing off. And there's certain tax rules and things like that go into play that you can ask your tax accountant, but you sometimes, depending on circumstances, can write off the whole thing in that year. So it might save you in taxes, 5, 10, 15, 20 grand, just depending on your personal circumstances.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
So,
Uh-oh.
let's say I wanna.
It's gonna be a good one.
I wanna take, let's say, all the GCs in Tampa. I wanna take them to the strip club. Okay.
Okay.
Take them out for like a fun night out,
Yeah.
dinner, and all that. I'm making a key relationship with them. Is that a tax write-off?
So depends who you're talking to, right? If you want to do it the right way, technically, no, that would not be a write-off. You can't include alcohol and certain things like that. For the if you're pulling out cash and things like that for the strip club, I would advise against writing that off.
Okay.
Yeah.
That answered my question.
Yeah.
Carmelo, why do you think like Carmelo doesn't handle a lot of the financial side of the business? I strictly deal with that. Why do you think you as a painting contractor, why do you think CloudBooks would be a good service to buy or hire for your business?
So first of all, the time saving of the bookkeeping, and then always having those P&L statements at the end of every month. That's how I can easily keep track of everything while focusing on getting the work in, bringing the money in, and also paying everybody else. So just help me keep track of my numbers without me worrying about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that should be one of the biggest values that brought to the table from having a bookkeeper or whatever it might be, because you can focus more on your actual job. It's
Eh,
one less thing. Some people say, "Oh, I go home at night and I can't spend time with my kids because I'm going through the books." I'm like, okay, your time is worth more than that. I think, right?
Yeah,
100%.
and also have my taxes in order at the end of every year.
At the end of every year, ready to go, ready to file.
Don't have to worry about my 1099s or
None of that. All ready to go.
Do you think bringing expertise of somebody that's been doing it the right way for 5 years, forget I'm your brother, forget we're in business together. Um, like let's say CloudBooks, a service that specializes for contractors only, has an expert on the field scaling a painting company would give you value as a painting business owner.
yeah, of course, because I can mimic what they do and implement it into my business model.
Yeah,
So that way
that's
I can scale it. Maybe not as good, but s- uh, with the same skill set or
Or the same
software,
blueprint pretty
yeah.
much.
same blueprint.
What I tell a lot of my clients that come in and they're like, "I'm thinking of starting, this business, whatever it might be." I go, "Well, do you know what goes into it?" They go, "I think I do." I say, "Why not find a mentor first, right? That can
Hmm.
teach you kind of the ins and outs of what to expect. And maybe you're not going to like it. Maybe they can save you the time right up front and say, you know what, that business is not for me. Maybe you should do AB, something else."
Yeah, because you can ask for a toll road pretty
Yeah.
much.
But at the same time, like you said earlier, Radion, you got to take risks, right? So just because one person says, "Ah, it's not worth it," doesn't mean it's a bad idea. But maybe you just got to do some more research into it to know what you're getting into.
And the best way to scale your business is delegating responsibilities. We've talked about this in a previous episode before. And like you mentioned earlier, saving about 10 hours a month in bookkeeping. I might
Yeah.
not be the best bookkeeper in the world. And using my 10 hours, I can use that doing something else, maybe where I'm a better performer, either sales or,
Marketing or key
marketing. Yeah.
relationships.
This is how I break it down for some of
Yeah.
my clients that are like on the edge. If they need a bookkeeper, don't need a bookkeeper, I tell them, okay, how much is your time worth? They say, oh, well, I bill about $200 an hour for whatever it might be. I go, okay, well, if our fees are like 500 a month, that's 2.5 hours of your time, right?
Yep,
If you're spending 10, 15, 20 hours a month or whatever, even, a quarter, whatever it might be, you're losing money is what you're doing.
pretty
Your
much.
time is valuable.
Yeah.
So yeah, I always tell people like, hey, calculate how much you're worth. And how do you do that? It's like how much money did you take home this year? And then figure out how many hours you work on average per week and multiply that times 52 and then divide it by your total income. And that's how you're gonna find how much money you're actually worth and how much money you actually make.
I actually have a funny example related to this exact topic. So I had a client come in and I started doing their bookkeeping, and then they stopped the bookkeeping and said, "No, we're going to take care of it in house." I said, "Okay, whatever you want, that's fine." They came to me at the end of the year for taxes, and they gave me an income statement balance sheet that were all over the place. I'm like, "What is this?" They're like, "Oh, this is our books." I'm like, "No, it's not. I know you're making 400,000 a year. You're showing like negative 300,000 in income. You're showing losses." Like, "Oh, I think I messed this up, messed this up." So they had me go through, fix up, QuickBooks Zero, whatever it might be, and I ended up charging them more than what their billing would have been if I just did their bookkeeping throughout the year. So it they ended up switching back to just us doing the bookkeeping. They said, "Yeah, this is not for us."
Yeah. People don't understand the value of that.
Yeah, they think they can take care of it, but then they realize in the long run, no, it's a lot more than they think.
Plus, as a business owner, your time is way better allocated in growing the business versus doing those things.
Yeah,
Because only for like $500 a month, like you said, 10 hours of my time, but that's a lot of time where I can focus on growing the business
yeah,
instead of me just sitting on my computer and doing the numbers.
and just running the numbers.
And I can just hop on a call with you every month and be like, hey man, how are we looking? Or you can just call me. That's another plus. If you see like something that raises a red flag, like, hey, Radion, why are you spending so much money on this
Yeah.
compared to last month? That was not there. And then that's another plus as well. You having an advisor on your side that keeps an eye on everything.
I mean, some of our clients, we have calls with them once a month, sometimes once a quarter, sometimes once a year, believe it or not, just depending on how long they've been with us. So they know how the game goes because we teach them everything,
Yeah.
right? Some people are like, oh, why are you telling them everything? No, I want them to know everything because it makes my job easier and it makes their life easier, right? And it makes them, they can focus more time on growing their business.
Also, they know what they're talking about, what you're
Yeah.
talking about to them.
And we build that relationship. It's not even about the bookkeeping anymore. They get advice from us, right? Which is, one of my clients. I remember he was telling me, he's like, I can call you and text you anytime, and you answer within 24 hours. I'm
That's
like, and to us that's standard, right? Like it was not like an extra service that we're providing. And he said, he's like, I would never move to another account, even if they were charging me half what you're charging me, just because I like that I can contact you, I can reach you whenever I need.
told you the peace of mind.
Peace of mind, yeah,
It's big, especially if you want to be a successful business owner. Having peace of mind will help you a lot.
yeah.
Managing stress too, because that was my biggest thing when I was starting out. I was like stressed out all the time when tax season would roll around. Now it's like seamless.
Mhm.
We do our monthly payments.
Now with you, I don't even feel it. I feel like
Yeah,
we talk about your taxes a couple times a year, a few times a year, and then boom, file done onto
that's
onto the
it.
next thing.
Yeah, because once you like work with somebody that's a specialist like Shadi over time, you're gonna learn things. You're gonna become better. So you're gonna become an expert kind of yourself too. I mean, I'm not an expert CPA or an accountant, but I know
But
myself.
you should know your stuff, of course, because you're the one that's going and buying the things or paying, quoting the jobs, whatever it might be. I'm just telling you kind of the healthier business after you do what you do. So if you know more about what the back end should look like, you'll do a better job of, doing the upfront work.
Correct.
I don't know if that was confusing or not, but that's the best way to look at it.
No, it was not confusing. It was pretty on point, I think. And also, like another thing that the reports helped me a lot just by looking at my numbers is like, do I have room to hire another crew?
Mhm.
Do I have room to train guys? Do I have room to buy more pumps? Do I have room to invest in what else, like sanders, stuff like for the guys and all
Shop
that?
work.
Shop, like a lot of things. Or like another question I got yesterday from the Instagram stories that we posted. One guy asked me if like consulting services, masterminds are a write off. What do you think? I
It
think
is,
yeah, they are a
it
write
is a
off.
write off, 100%. So it's like what we call a professional fee or consulting fee, whatever it might be. But that is a write off because you're not spending that money for fun. You're spending that money to try to grow your business. So of
Okay.
course that should be a write off.
So all my consulting fees are all 100% write off
They are write-offs, without a doubt,
for
because you're not spending that money just to have, for fun. You're spending it to try to grow your business.
correct. Yeah. So here's from the expert guys because I tell people like, hey, I can teach you for free pretty much because the fees that you're gonna pay me, they're all a full 100% write off.
Yeah.
Did you get any questions from our audiences? I got a bunch, man.
So I have two scenarios. Let's say it's just me starting my own business, and how should I structure my business? Let's say if I have two guys or if I have 8 guys on the payroll,
Do you mean from like a tax standpoint,
tax
or
standpoint.
so if it just you as a sole like
So
proprietor owner? So I would make an LLC in the very very beginning. I would file what we call Schedule C on your 1040. So no
Mhm.
S corp, none of that kind of stuff, no partnership. And then after you get to the point, and this is kind of a gray area, but if you're showing net income, like let's say 70, 80, 90, 100,000, that's when you have to start thinking, okay, maybe I got to change my tax structure to, an S corp or whatever it might be. So is that kind of what you're asking?
yes,
Yeah. So that's you in the very some guys come to me and they're already making, net income 200, 300,000, but they were on, Schedule C. I tell them, okay, we gotta switch things around, file for S corp, put you on payroll, whether it's through us or through ADP, paychecks, whoever it might be, you got to get you on payroll and do things the right way. But there's, that can get, again, another podcast worth technical information, but it's a good question because a lot of people don't know how that stuff works.
and another question I got was, do you recommend somebody doing their taxes quarterly or just one go?
So you technically file your taxes once a year, right? But for the purpose of making, the government, Uncle Sam, he wants his money not at the very end of the year. He wants it in chunks throughout the year. Because if you don't make those payments in chunks throughout the year, you're going to pay a crazy penalty and with interest at the end of the year. So that's why where the bookkeeping comes into play, right? If you keep track your books every month and you're like, oh, my net income is already 150 grand, you got to make a payment against 150 grand for tax purposes. Because if you at the end of the year are netting 600 grand, you haven't paid any money, to Uncle Sam and to the state you live in, whatever it might be, you're gonna owe not just the tax, but you're gonna owe the penalties and interest on top. And like for example, I'm from Michigan, penalties and interest can be like 25%.
Wow,
Oof.
Yeah. So if you owe 10 grand, the penalties and interest is 2,500 plus,
that's crazy.
which is a lot.
That is a lot.
Yeah.
25%. That's on
25%.
100 G's. That's 25K.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's all the questions I got. So what are some of yours?
Oh, a guy asked me when do I choose if I want to have W2 employees or 1099s? And I know that's a
So
gray area that me and you talk about it all the
so
time.
that's getting more into the legal standpoint of things, but a lot of times I get clients that come in and they're inappropriately putting, a W-2 employee as a 1099. And then I've actually seen and heard of businesses that get shut down because of that. So not so much when you're a mom and pop, but when you scale and get bigger and you're doing 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 million in revenue. If you have like every single one of your guys is 1099, even though they're for sure an employee, they'll hit you not just with penalties and interest to the point where I've heard of businesses that file bankruptcy.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so it can get very, very, very bad. You don't see it that often with mom and pops, but it's better to try to be on top of it and make sure that you're properly filing someone as a W-2 employee versus an independent contractor, which is a 1099. So I know it gets confusing for a lot of people, but it's one of those things. Ask not just your attorney, whatever it might be, but you can ask your CPA or bookkeeper, whatever, how that goes. If they don't know how that works, you
The red
probably
flag.
you got to look for someone else, most likely.
Red flag.
So those are one of the, like the basic question. One of the basic questions that you should be able to ask, a bookkeeper, CPA, tax preparer, whoever it might be, and they should be able to answer it fairly quickly and easily.
Awesome. Yeah, and you should be pretty transparent with your bookkeeper and your CPA guys. Just tell them how your business is structured. That way they can advise you the right way.
Oh yeah, like a lot of our clients, they tell us everything, even the business and personal, whatever you want to call it. They give us everything, and it helps us give them advice on how to treat things going forward.
Awesome. So those were pretty much the main questions. We got other ones, but it would get too technical and would need 3 hours to answer. All right, guys. So this will wrap up our episode of the Dirty Painters podcast.
Be sure to follow our business on Instagram at Olympian Painting and our personal pages over at Olympian_Redion, Olympian_Karmelo, and also make sure to connect with Shadi on LinkedIn or go to framcpa.com to learn more about Shadi and his business.
And guys, if you like this episode, if you got any value, make sure you send it to any tradies, any people who think it'll help them out. And then until next time, this is Redion.
And I'm Karmelo.
Signing off from the Dirty Painters podcast. Thank you, Shadi, for being with us. Take care, guys.
Thanks for
Take
having me.
care.